Hey, Mike here. Welcome back to Uncommon Pallor. As usual, I got a stack of records, and as usual, I'm gonna jump right into them. So the first one here, band from Glasgow, Scotland, Anxiety. It's the self-titled mini LP on La Vida es un Mus. It was released in 2016. Um, these guys, their music has a weird, sinister kind of pulsing quality, kind of like maybe like a fucked up Joy Division or something. Um, but there's also components of like noise rock, like there's maybe a less grandiose kind of amphetamine reptile sound, or maybe like a Jesus lizard type thing. And then there's also bits of fast, kind of off kilter, weird sounding hardcore, like kind of like maybe I don't know the first Meat Puppet 7 inch or something, where it's pretty unorthodox even for the time and their contemporaries. So yeah, I this came out in 2016. I heard it then, and I wasn't super jazzed on it. Well, I heard some songs off it, but now that I bought it and I've listened to it a bunch, I like it quite a bit more. I think I'm probably gonna buy their 7 inch as well. So yeah, Anxiety. Next up, another one on La Vida es un Mus, but from this year. It's a band from Singapore called Sial. I've got, I think, everything they've released so far. Super chaotic band, but they're tight. Like it sounds just like a wall of noise, but you can tell they can play. I was lucky enough to see them twice, and so I can testify to that. Um, there's a like a wall of noise and feedback riding behind the tracks, on pretty much everything they've recorded. Actually, it's just part of their sound. Vocals are completely fucking furious and angry. Um, she demands attention from a room, and she gets it. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of chaotic, just in your face, modern hardcore punk with some pretty fucking pummeling slow parts in it now and again, then yeah, CL's probably for you. My Malay is sorely lacking, but the record's called Tari, Pemusnah, Kuasa. I probably butchered that, but CL. Next on FOAD Records from Italy, it's the 1990 to 1994 discography of Toxic Noise. It's a Japanese band. Been familiar with them for years because I've had their split 7 inch with Damnable Excite Zombies forever, it seems. Um, they also have a split flexi with a band called Shoko Furio, I believe is how you pronounce it. This has those two records, their demo and compilation tracks. Just well played, no nonsense Japanese hardcore. Just random solos flying here and there through the songs. Lots of crash cymbals. Vocalist sounds a lot like Roger Murray, especially on like Cause for Alarm era Agnostic Front. It's got a lot of that like kind of thing in his voice. Super good band. I didn't even know this discography existed until recently, so I picked up a copy. Next, Radiation Records reissue of the Rattus LP. Originally released on Rat Cage in 1984. This is old Finnish hardcore, just like you'd expect. Very Discharged influenced. The vocals will go from like, long passages of like kind of talking type vocals, and then right into just screaming his fucking balls off. So he needs like a lozenge after or something. You really can't go wrong with early Finnish hardcore. I mean, it's pretty much all good. But these guys are one of the more well known ones, and there's a reason for it because they're fucking good at it. Next up on Area Pirata, it's a double LP, The Furious Era, 1979 to 1987, by Cheetah Chrome Motherfuckers. Old Italian hardcore band. If you've heard Italian hardcore, you know what to expect. It's just fast, full of energy, furious, as the album title implies. Visually, you can expect lots of bandanas and ballpoint pen drawings on their jeans. It's not something like, it's not as metal as something like Raw Power. It's not as falling apart as Wretched, even though that's wonderfully falling apart because those guys rule. But yeah, it's just solid, well played, fast early 80s hardcore from Italy. Next, a band that a lot of people are pretty familiar with, I'm sure. Inepsy, the Lost Tracks LP on Feral Ward. If you've never heard them, Inepsy's a band from Montreal. They're basically a crusty Motorhead. They do it very well. Excellent live band. Everything, they're consistently good. Everything I've ever heard by them is awesome. So yeah, and you know, for that reason, and I'm sure that's, you know, most people watching this know who they are. Next up, another band with a Motorhead influence, Midnight from Cleveland. Sounds like Motorhead mixed with Venom and with some punk in it. I'm not fanatical about Midnight. I think they're pretty good. I've got a few of their records from before this, but this one's their first on Metal Blade from this year, and I'm not jazzed on it. They kind of seem to have lost their edge, and the songs aren't as hooky. They're not memorable. I thought at first it might just be the production, but you know, after I listened to it a bunch more, I listened to it a couple times, but it's just, the songwriting's not as good, in my opinion. I hope this isn't a case of where, you know, a band signs with a slightly bigger label and then they just go to shit, because that would be a waste. But, you know, I guess until their next record, my opinion is going to stick that this is not very good. Next up on High Roller is Minotaur, Beast of Nations. It's a German speed metal kind of band, I guess. Been around since 1983. This is from 2016, I think. It's a 4-song, 12-inch. Yeah, look at those fucking guys. Haggard motherfuckers. Basically, to me, it sounds like a budget creator with a new wave of British heavy metal influence, kind of. It's like a less creative creator. I mean, they're pretty good. Like, I mean, they're not bad by any means. It's just, if I'm going to listen to something German, it's probably going to be Creator or Sodom or Destruction, generally. Next up on Hell's Headbangers, Blasphemic Cruelty, Crucible of the Infernum. I picked this up only because it was the only death metal record in a hardcore distro. So I was like, I'll buy it. Turns out they're from Tampa. There's members of Ares Kingdom in here who I was familiar with. It's kind of simply played death metal, like simple in the, you know, in the world of death metal. I guess these guys kind of dumb it down. Vocals are totally intelligible. You can pretty much hear what he's saying, which is a rarity. For a point of reference, I would say, you know, something along the lines of maybe like Malevolent Creation or something, but they're not as good as Malevolent Creation. At least the stuff I've heard. So it's not bad though. Another death metal band. This one on $20 spin. Fetid Steeping Corporeal Mess from Seattle, Washington. People from Cauterized and Cerebral Rot in this. Definitely a Carcass influence, although not so much that I would consider them a Carcass imitator. You know, it's well played, you know, death metal with kind of, you know, monster vocals, cavernous monster vocals, I guess. It's pretty good. Never heard of them before. Also on $20 spin, 4-song 12-inch by Witch Vomit called Poison Blood. Again, super well played death metal with, you know, monster vocals. It's, I mean, I don't have like a huge modern death metal, you know, section to my collection to be good with referencing that kind of stuff, like comparative wise, but I don't know. This is pretty good. A lot of people kind of bag on $20 spin because their bands that they release all sound the same, but I like the sound of those bands, so I have no problem with it. Yeah, Witch Vomit from Portland, Oregon. Next up, I believe they're from Oakland, California. It's Necrot. It's, the fuck's this thing called? Blood Offerings. Now, Necrot's a band that I've kind of just ignored because, like, same with Ghoul, because I always figured they'd be like the Municipal Waste of death metal, kind of. Like, not that, I mean, I have a big problem with Municipal Waste, but it's just kind of like a party vibe type thing or something. But yeah, I don't know. This is just good, deathy thrash. You know, it's got growled vocals that aren't too over the top. Definitely focus more on like heaviness than they do on speed. I was kind of surprised to learn that the guitar player used to play in Word Salad. I kind of wondered what happened to them. I used to listen to them way back when. They came from Albuquerque, New Mexico, moved to California. So, yeah, Neckrot's not as bad as I thought they'd be. Pretty good. Next, an Austrian band, Disastrous Murmur, with Skinning Beginning, 1989 to 1991. It's on Floga Records. This is one of those bands that I always saw in, like, you know, Napalm Death's thank you lists and stuff like that. I always kind of thought the name was kind of interesting. They've been around since 1988. The guitar player used to play in Disharmonic Orchestra, and when he left, he formed Disastrous Murmur. It's underproduced, but I think that works for them, because I think if they had better production, they would not be as appealing to me. It's definitely like a metal punk hybrid, but not in a crossover way, like definitely more in an early grindcore way. Yeah, this has their 89 demo and 7-inch on it, and the 91 demo. Sound quality kind of varies. It's very sloppy, but it's just got some kind of an appeal to it. Some songs better than others, obviously, but the songs that I like I think are actually really, really cool. So, yeah. Next up, on the charmingly named Regurgitated Semen Records, Boult Stein, Rebirth of Humanity. It's a Japanese grindcore band. Been around for quite a while. Probably best known because they have a split 7-inch with Insect Warfare. Not too far removed from Unholy Grave. Definitely an early Napalm Death influence. A lot of fucking songs on it. It's good. It's well played. I mean, the Japanese usually don't fuck around. It's pretty hard to find a genuinely, you know, bad Japanese band in most genres. So, yeah. Some reissues. I got a reissue of the self-titled Bathory on Black Mark. Mainly because I didn't have this record and I felt like hearing In Conspiracy with Satan. I used to have it on cassette, but I actually wore it out. Not much to be said about Bathory. I mean, started by a guy named Corthon. He had session musicians with him at points, I guess. And this record basically lays out, it's the blueprint for, you know, black metal as they know it today. Very, very, you know, raw. Corthon, it started in 1984, was originally released on Black Mark, and I think Corthon died in 2004 after making a foray into the creation of Viking metal, I guess. Next up, High Roller reissue of Omen, Battle Cry. Heard this band when I was a kid because I had the Bonsai Axe comp and it has Battle Cry on it. Thought it was okay, but back then I was just into like faster, raw, or, you know, hard stuff. So I kind of ignored them. Never picked up an original. So yeah, decided to grab this now. It's good. Early power metal from LA. Originally released in 1984 on Metal Blade. At times it sounds like what you would expect from a band with a Dungeons and Dragons cover. It's just, you know, kind of fantasy power metal. It's good. And here's another High Roller reissue of Living Death's Vengeance to Hell. Or Vengeance of Hell. German band. Very clunky and amateurish sounding. Kind of sloppy, but I think it works for them. At least to me. I had a friend that owned this when I was a kid, so I was familiar with it. I didn't like their later stuff nearly as much as this. Yeah. Riding Virgins is the song that I actually remembered off this the most, and it's probably still my jam off this today. So, Living Death. Here we got the Muro Ordenmundial split LP on La Vida es un Mus. I gushed about Muro a couple videos ago, so I won't really get into it. It's just awesome hardcore punk from Colombia. Sounds like it, you know, stepped out of one of those old 80s comps. Very passionate, hardworking band. Ordenmundial is from Spain. I saw them a few years ago in Toronto. They were actually surprisingly good. It's just noisy, angry Spanish hardcore. It's you know, not super far removed from Muro, but I think Muro's sound is a little simpler than Ordenmundial's. There's a wave of noise washing over the tracks. Lots of echo and stuff. It's really good though. Ordenmundial. And yeah, I guess that's it. 15 minutes, 29 seconds. Goodbye.